So, hello and welcome to the Lewis Nichols Show. I'm really excited to bring on my next guest today. Hopefully talk about your career and all your upcoming projects. So let's say hello to the brilliant Luke Bailey. How are you?
Oh, mate, I'm good. Thank you very much for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. There's loads that I want to talk to you about, but, it'd be great to go back to the kind of very beginning for you, which is where your love and passion for acting actually came from. Was it something you always loved when you were growing up?
Yeah, okay, so like the honest story, I suppose, with sort of how and why I started, I'm kind of sort of trapped doing it now in a way, when I was younger, sort of where I grew up, I was probably, like, my family were the only sort of non-white family in the area. I grew up in Essex, and at the time, so this was sort of 80s, 90s, so at the time there wasn't, like, where I lived, like loads and loads of black families, and I was starting to kind of get the idea that I was different in school. When I first started school, sort of, people would comment on my skin, and I'm not saying about being racist or anything like that, but I was just sort of becoming aware, oh right, yeah, sort of I look different than other people. It's not really a concept that I'd sort of understood or really thought about before then. So then that was happening. I started to feel like, oh yeah, I'm a little bit different. And then I'd watch TV, mainly Casualty, on a Saturday night with my mum, and I'd see like other people that look like me on the TV show, and I was like, oh right, so that must be where all of the brown people are. they all go there. And then so TV for me was sort of a way of seeing people like myself, and that was kind of, I think, sort of my first understanding of that as an occupation and a job, and that's sort of where my love for it sort of stems from, I think.
Is this
so I've just seen in the background. I was
looking at all the things that are behind you, and
just noticed.
That's so cool.
He's just in case this all kicks off and goes away that we weren't expecting. He's here to sort it anyway.
Sort it out for you. Do you know, it's surreal to hear you actually mention that you sitting down watching Casualty with your mum, because obviously that was a massive part of your life. You did a lot of episodes of Casualty. How did that come about? Did you just audition for the part and then get it?
Yeah, I just auditioned as normal. So I'd already done Casualty before I was on it for like a long period of time. It was my very, very first television job. So like for me, that was a huge thing, because obviously being so young and watching like Casualty, and that being the thing that kind of made me think, oh, do you know what, I might try and become an actor. So then being on Casualty was like a massive thing, and I was in one episode. They cut me. I was obviously terrible, but no, I got cut from that. So I was like, I had all my friends around, and we were all ready to watch my my television premiere, and then like I just wasn't on. Everyone was like, "Are you really in it?" I was like, "I promise." I was in it. So yeah, then I did a program called You Get Me, and the casting directors had seen me on that, and asked me to come and audition for Sam Bateman in Casualty. So yeah, I went for 2 or 3 auditions over like a period of a couple of weeks, and then I didn't actually hear anything. I think it was about 3 months after my last audition, and then I was just I think I was climbing I was in Wales, North Wales, climbing a mountain with a mate. Climbing a mountain, we were walking and randomly, like, because we didn't get signal anywhere, but then randomly my phone started ringing in my pocket. I was like, well, halfway up a mountain, like I couldn't see any bars of signal on there, and I answered the phone, and they offered me the job.
That's incredible. Up a mountain, getting the job of Casualty. But when you got the main part to be in there, what were your family's reaction? Because obviously you mentioned that you watched this with them. They must have been ecstatic, because it's one of the most iconic shows on the BBC.
Yeah, like I remember my mum being present. I don't know if anyone actually believed me at first because of what happened the first time. They're like, oh yeah, this again. It's like the boy who cried wolf. But yeah, like my mum was especially excited because she'd watched the show since, like, because I'd watched it when I was a kid with her, but then she'd carried on watching it afterwards. And I think she still watches it now. So like for her particularly, I think it was quite a big deal.
You know, when you're like working and you're in that environment, do you actually learn a lot of medical stuff? Like, do you kind of feel like a bit of a doctor? Like you start giving advice to people?
Me personally, no. I know that, I mean, they used to have books around, like actual medical books and stuff. So at the reception, I'd find myself flicking through them and reading them and stuff like that. I would never pretend to have learned anything useful or valuable. I know that one of the other characters in the show, a lady called Martina, she was on a bus once, and apparently something happened. Someone had a heart attack on the bus, and like people turned around and looked at her as though she might be able to help. She was like, it's not real. I can't actually help in this situation. I'm very sorry. But yeah, like, no, I've learned absolutely nothing from the show. Nothing practical anyway.
Well, obviously, Casualty, one of the most iconic shows, but of course, another big show that, you know, you're probably surprised that 15 years later, it's still as big as it was then. Of course, Waterloo Road.
We're talking Waterloo Road, yeah.
I mean, it's coming back like in people's minds again. But you joined the show when it was, well, it was established, it was hugely successful and had the most incredible cast. So for you as an actor to be working with such big name actors, was that a thrill for you? Like, I mean, Neil Morrissey was one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, because Neil, I'd obviously watched since I was a kid as well, on Boone and Men Behaving Badly, particularly. And then obviously, like, knowing that he'd done the voice of Bob the Builder and everything. Yeah. And he's like, the guy's had a #1 single as well, I guess, because he, you know, sang the song of Bob the Builder. But yeah, I had a huge amount of respect for Neil and Denise and everybody, and sort of coming onto that show with those people. I mean, it can be quite daunting, I think. And I know at first I was a little bit, not sort of, particularly shows like that, they kind of get into a pattern and a rhythm, and you sort of come in and you need to sort of find that pattern, that rhythm. It's like a hamster on a hamster wheel. You've got the wheel's already moving, and you've got to sort of jump in and kind of and like get going straight away. And with those guys around, they were really sort of helpful, very comforting. They're hugely passionate about what they do, and they sort of put an arm around you and sort of help you find your feet and everything. So not only are they fantastic actors, not only are they huge stars as well, but they were also, you know, very supportive.
What I find incredible, though, you were 7 years in real life. Your character was actually 7 years younger than you were. But you looked kind of at ease on set. It looked realistic because you do look incredibly young for your age. Like I showed a picture of you to my partner. I was like, how old do you think this person is? And they went, well, a couple of years younger than you. I'm 27. So like, you really do look incredibly young. So were you kind of daunted by that prospect of playing a character that was so many years younger than your real age?
To be honest, no, because unfortunately, fortunately, I suppose there's two ways of looking at it. It seems to be a double-edged sword, but my looking younger than I am sort of worked in my favor a lot, and I was often auditioning for characters who are a little bit younger than me. So I was sort of used to being in that kind of mindset. Number one, I'm hugely immature for my age anyway, in terms of I'm just an idiot. So maybe.
Well, we can see that with what you've got behind you at the beginning.
Oh right, yeah, my toys and stuff like that. Ridiculous. I think I don't know if you can see in the corner over there, but yeah, there's a bunch of books up there. Most of those are kids' books as well. I like kind of sort of, you know, young adult fiction and stuff like that. Not like exclusively, but I do. I've got like, what's up there, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and David Copperfield and things like that. And I think there's the Mallory Blackman books as well.
Well, that's quite intellectual. It's not. I thought you were going to say like you've got Finding Nemo or something up there. I think that's a really good
on DVD.
Read.
That's all downstairs. But I'm a big geek as well. I love all the Marvel stuff, and I'm into sort of all comic books and everything. But yeah, so like I don't know. I think my mindset has always been sort of quite youthful anyway, and yeah, I think the idea that I'd constantly been auditioning for younger parts, school kids, and teenagers, is like my head was kind of in that at that time. So I was quite lucky. And I think the other thing is most of the people on the show were playing quite a bit older than they actually were, even if it was by 2 or 3 years. So it didn't feel weird, if that makes sense. It was a mature school, let's say, like Greece.
Yeah.
They're all in their 30s.
But you know, when you look at your time on the show, you came in as one of the biggest families in the show, with the biggest storylines. And you had Earl Kelly, that was just one of the biggest villains in the show. You had Denzel, that was so young, and he was kind of looking at this brother of his and going down the wrong path. But your character was one of the nicest, most genuine people you could find. I mean, he was just genuine, and you had what everybody loves, the love story with, of course, Flick. Played by the amazing Sadie as well, who I know you're really close with. You share music together. So what was it like working with Sadie on the show?
Oh, Sadie was amazing. Yeah, because obviously I'd never met Sadie before, like doing the show. Other people that I knew Sadie, and so people would be like, "Oh, you'll love Sadie. She's cool." And she's got like this amazing energy. No matter what's going on in the outside world, once you get like into work and you're around Sadie, sort of everything kind of disappears, because she just, you know, you could be having the worst day, the worst week, the worst whatever, but she's just got such a giving, lovely kind of countenance and energy to her that it just makes you feel at ease and wonderful. And then we'd just be laughing the whole time. I mean, she was one of my best friends for a good few years, sort of doing that, and afterwards we'd often spend time with each other when I was living in Manchester. She's ace, absolutely ace.
So when you think back of your time in the show, I know it was a really long time ago, is there a moment that stands out as one of your favorite scenes to film? Because I know that you were involved, I think it was Flick's dad with the golf club, giving Marley a complete battering on this kind of bank. You had some big stories.
There was loads for me. There was loads in terms of scenes. I was really fortunate, and I'm so pleased that they kind of had that sort of trust in me, because before getting the part, before going onto the show, I didn't know what the full storyline would be. I'd seen a few scenes, which obviously got changed before we actually shot. And I kind of had an idea, and they told me sort of a brief outline of what the storyline would be, but I didn't realize that Marley's arc, and there would be so many over the 20 episodes. I sort of assumed that there'd be a couple of episodes, and then the rest of it would be, part of other people's storylines, or not even there. But the fact that like there was that big storyline in the beginning, the scene that really stands out for me was when Denzel comes out with the gun at the end of the first episode in the fourth series, and obviously, like all of that bit where I'm running towards him, that's all like ad-libbed. They just basically put a camera onto the people in the crowd who were in sort of all gathered there, and would just say, right, the camera's on, Adam Thomas, for example, camera's on Dante. Just, give us something for when he comes out. So they'd run the scene from his perspective. Then they did one from, from whoever's perspective. And then they went, okay, right, well, we need one from Marley's perspective. So I was just like, well, what would you do if you had found out that your brother, so I was just, kind of just did whatever. And they just managed to keep up with what was going on. And I think they knew that there was a police officer there, and that I was going to try and like run towards the school, and the police officer would stop me, but none of like sort of the words or anything like that were scripted. And so that's a big one, because I think I really found my feet on the show in that moment, if that makes sense. And I kind of really got to grips with who Marley was as a character. I've seen the episode back since then, and it makes me laugh sort of watching it, because I was still sort of within the first, it obviously takes about 2 weeks or whatever to film an episode. So in the first few days and the first few scenes, I'm sort of very much kind of trying to work out who Marley is. And that sort of, I feel like I find that comes across a little bit. But then I think after that moment, and when his reaction to Denzel coming out of the school with the gun and everything, I think that really kind of, for me, sort of signified who Marley was as a person, and what his family meant to him, and how compassionate he was. Because obviously you see the juxtaposition of Marley and Earl in that very moment, what Earl thinks and what Earl's done to his family, and what Marley thinks and what Marley would do for his family. So that for me was a huge turning point in terms of my understanding of who he was. And then obviously there's the bit where he gets beaten up by Ralph, which was, again, an amazing scene. I remember that specifically because when we went to film it, it was obviously there was mud everywhere, and it was like, you know, it'd been raining or whatever the day before, and like the costume department were like, oh no, we've only got 3 costumes, which means that we can only get muddy 3 times, if that makes sense. So then it was very sort of blocky in how we actually shot it, because we had to shoot all of the stuff where Marley was, you know, not dirty, and then all of the stuff where he ends up on the floor. There's a bit, in fact, it's quite funny, where I'm running away from him and I slip over and sort of do a little spin around but land on my feet. And the reason that I did that was because I wasn't supposed to fall over, and I actually slipped.
Wow.
And then I was trying to stay on my feet because I was thinking about the costume. Nothing to do with not getting beaten up or anything. I was worried that I was going to get the costume muddy. So what had happened is we'd get muddy, I'd go back to the school, I'd shower off, put a new costume on, and then go and do the scene again. And then once that costume got dirty, we had one go with it. So we only had 3 takes really of all of that fighting. But that just kind of adds to, you know, you've got to be in the moment. You've got to really kind of work your best. You've got to, you know, you can't just fall over, get muddy, and go, oh, cut, let's start again. It was like, no, this has got to stay clean. Don't get blazer dirty.
I'm not going to watch that the same now. I'll be looking out for that moment.
Well, that's the thing, when you've been sort of like, because I've got a film that's going on at the moment. I've written a film and they're shooting now, and I'm going to go and like pop my head in again tomorrow. You know, just to crack the whip and keep make sure they're around. I'm joking. I'm just going to pop my head in just to see how everything's going, all that business. And but I don't want to watch too much of it, because it does ruin the sort of illusion when you kind of watch it and you've seen how the cogs work. You're not thinking about what's going on in the scene. Sometimes you're thinking, oh, you know, you're thinking about something technical that happened. Oh yeah, I remember the camera sort of couldn't get around there, so we had to change how we shot it. And you're sort of thinking about the process as opposed to what happened. So I think sometimes you don't enjoy it quite as much when you've seen the behind the scenes stuff.
I mean, with obviously, you were talking then about the character Marley. What I loved about Waterloo Road is they had a great way of developing the characters. And over time, we actually saw that this character had such a troubled childhood, in the sense he was almost like a father figure to his siblings. You know, he had a mum that was an alcoholic. You know, she couldn't keep a job down. So he literally had to grow up very quickly, which I know a lot of people in real life have to go through. So that character was relatable for so many people. Did you ever get people write to you saying, look, you know, I've been where the character was, or, you know, it helped me out? Because I know a lot of people have been through that.
Yeah, I've had several people over the years sort of speak to me about Waterloo Road as a whole, really. And because I think there were so many issues going on. I think like people found lots of stuff relatable. It wasn't just but sometimes it would be sort of one particular family. But I've had a lot of people who have gone through the care system who, you know, watched Waterloo Road, and I sort of feel they did a great job of showing people's basically sort of doing what people like Dickens do, and kind of going, this is the stereotype, and then what we'll do is we'll subvert the stereotype, and we'll give you a balanced, you know, 2 sides of the story, rather than most of the time shows can be you know, whether through, you know, doing it on purpose or just accidentally, they'll often just show the stereotype because it's a little bit more glamorous in some respects, and people, when they see that on screen, that's kind of all they understand, and that's all they know of people in their own situation. Whereas I think what Waterloo Road did really well was really show balance. You know, this is a negative, but then here's a positive about the same situation, and you make your own mind up. And I think they didn't insult the audience, and kind of, which was great. And I think that's why it sort of resonated now still, because I think a lot of television programs still now aren't really as honest as they can be. So Waterloo Road was great at that. I also, my mum fosters kids, and has done since, probably I must have been about 17, I think, at the time when mum first fostered a child. And since then she's been fostering like children quite regularly. So I sort of had an understanding of the care system. I was at the time a sort of an ambassador for a foster care charity as well. So yeah, I sort of kind of had a little bit of an inside experience and knowledge of what some of these young people go through. So I think that kind of helped as well with bringing Marley to life in that story.
When your time on the show came to an end, in, you know, you're out, because you did so many episodes of the show, As an actor, for you, do you then have a need to kind of do just one-off dramas? Do you get worried that you go from series to series to series, or is that not the case for an actor?
It isn't like, I think I'd just done a lot of long-running stuff at that time. So I did a thing called You Get Me, which was a CBBC series, and I did that for 3 years. We did 3 series of that. I think we did it something like that. Yeah, Reggie was in it. Yeah. So that was great fun. That was my sort of first introduction to acting, really. Then I came off of that, and then within a few months, I was on Casualty, and I did that for 3 years, and then I did a couple of little dramas in between, but then went on to Waterloo Road, and I sort of felt, I don't know, because I think we're talking about looking young as well. I just sort of felt like I'd done a lot of long-running dramas, and it was just nice to kind of look at something else, basically, and just try something new. I don't think it wasn't. I don't know if it was wholly conscious, but I sort of felt like, lots of the stuff that I was watching at the time, I think, were these big sort of flagship BBC one-off dramas, and I think it was a part of me was like, I'd like to kind of try my hand at that, and I sort of, and also I like moving around a bit, and I don't like kind of being stuck in the same place for too long. I've lived in Bristol for a few years. I lived in London for a bit. I've lived sort of on the outskirts of London, Essex, Manchester. I went to school in Widnes. Yeah. I'm now living in Wales. It's, I'm a bit of a nomad like that. And I think when you're on long running dramas, I get a bit itchy feet. And also I was worried that Marley probably wouldn't have the same kind of arc again. And then it's like, I was spoiled, essentially. And then you kind of go, because that's why I left Casualty, because I just felt like I'd had some really good storylines in the beginning. And then you've got obviously 25 other people that then need to have storylines, and then they come back around to you. And then I was just a little bit bored and a bit young and wanted to try new things. And I think my worry was that would happen if I did another series of Waterloo Road, I'd just sort of kind of be making up the numbers in a way. Whether or not that would happen, I don't know. But, like having such a strong storyline, it was like, well, what happens next? Where do you go? So yeah.
So you've done lots of kind of dramas, but more recently we saw you, which I loved, Death in Paradise.
Do you watch that?
I love Death in Paradise. I wanted to ask, was that filmed pre-lockdown? So was it filmed?
No. We did that in lockdown.
Wow.
Yeah. So they shoot in Guadeloupe, so they obviously have ever so slightly different rules over there in pertaining to filming. I don't know the exact ins and outs of that, but they allowed the production company to film out there, because they had like a sort of a lockdown as well, but theirs was more like a curfew. It was sort of like 6 p.m. onwards. You couldn't go to the beaches and do that, but they, and most of the restaurants and that were still shut when I was out there. But in terms of, there's loads to do outside in Guadeloupe. It's a Caribbean island. It's warm. It's not quite the same here. But no, that was during lockdown. I think it was the sort of the start of the second lockdown. So I wasn't obviously expecting that to come through at all. Yeah. I didn't, it was a bit came out of the blue. And then I had to go out to Guadeloupe. Unfortunately, like the rules, I don't really understand the rules, and I don't know whether or not this was right or wrong. But the rules at the time were, that you could go abroad to film and to work and stuff. So yeah, it's strange, but I didn't quite, it was a bit of a weird experience, I suppose, because obviously after lockdown, I was a bit, I'd spent so much time in the house, maybe that was part of it. But sort of traveling out there was just it was a weird experience, from going from being in and then suddenly you're in these crowds of people, and there's some people who are, observing the rules with masks and stuff, and there were many people that weren't, and it was a, it was quite anxiety sort of filled experience, really. I think it wasn't quite sure what was going on, and because everything happened so quickly, I wasn't really. And we were very much amidst the virus at that point. Things were getting worse as opposed to better. So yeah, it was a strange one, but an interesting experience.
Well, it must be nice just to go somewhere where it's so hot and so warm, like you said, to get out. Were you at Wales at the time? Yeah, so to go from Wales to such a warm place.
Yeah, I mean the weather here is dreadful, and I kind of the seasons affect me quite a lot, and I never realised how much they affect me until we start hitting spring and summer, and I start to sort of dance a little bit again, and I'm like, oh right, I've spent the last 5 months sort of in a real kind of grim mood, because now I can really feel myself getting sort of quite happy and buoyant. And fortunately for me, the last few years, so it'd be the last 3 years now. I mean, geez, how lucky am I? So 3 years ago, I was in South Africa over winter, filming. Last year, I spent a few weeks filming in Spain, and the weather was much better. It wasn't incredible, but Jesus, it was much better than it was here. So I got a bit of sunshine then, which got me through. And then, this year I was fortunate enough to be in Guadeloupe and getting a little bit of a fix of winter sunshine there. Wow. It's amazing. What a life. Do you know what I mean?
I'll be looking forward to next year on those statistics.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see if I can keep it up.
So what's next for you now? Because you mentioned a little bit earlier in the interview that you're working on a new film or a new project at the moment. Did you say that you wrote that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. So this happened at the beginning of lockdown. I've always written. I've written sort of like a small series not so long ago for sort of BBC Online with the BBC Writers' Room. And I've written a few plays as well, which have been on in various theatres and stuff. But the last couple of years, I've been not really writing that much at all. In fact, because there's been like quite a lot of acting work on, I've been really lucky. Then when we sort of got to the beginning of lockdown, I got contact from a company called Picture Perfect. It's a wonderful woman called Lucinda, who asked me if I wanted to write this film. And at first, because of the subject matter, I wasn't overly sure and didn't really know what was going on with the lockdown and with work and all that kind of business. And I was a bit like, because the story that I don't know how much I can say really, but the story is about some quite iconic members of the British sort of crime mythology, and there's been quite a few stories about them already. And I was like, do you just want to write another story about these people that, everyone, it's been done to death, and is there anything interesting really to say? But the company came back to me a few times and said, write whatever it is that you want about them. It doesn't have to be the same old story. We can find new angles to look at it. So we had a few discussions, and I did a bit of research, and I sort of found an angle which I felt hadn't been sort of done before. And it's about sort of a police investigation rather than about their crimes, if that makes sense. So I thought I'd look at it from a sort of slightly different perspective. And I found a narrative that I felt would work and could be could be done on the budget, but sort of be a great story as well. And it shouldn't be sort of, because we didn't have millions of quid to do it. That would be a different story. If we had 10-20 million pounds, we've got quite a small budget in comparison. So you kind of don't want to do stuff that's you're not going to be able to do, if that makes sense. You don't want to have planes and gun. But I've seen quite a lot of films, low budget films, and you see the cover of them, and there's all these battles going on, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be amazing. And you put it on, and they obviously haven't had the budget to put it on, but they've sort of suckered you in by making it seem like it's a big epic story. And I didn't want to do that either. We had a lot of fun creatively making a story that would work within our parameters, which I feel will become sort of more than the sum of its parts as well. I'm confident in that with the team that's involved and what they're doing on set at the moment. I think it's going to be fantastic, and sort of make my writing seem much better than it actually is, probably. So I wrote that. I actually wrote that while I was in Guadeloupe. I did the first draft while I was shooting Death in Paradise. So I didn't actually get to see very much of the island, I was basically on set. And when I wasn't on set, I was writing. I was in the hotel writing the first draft of this film. But I got it done sort of a couple of days before I flew home. Got it delivered, and then we spent the next sort of couple of months redrafting, changing, chopping, because we were supposed to start shooting in December. But we liked what we'd sort of got, and we sort of thought if we spend a bit more time developing it, we can really kind of have something So a little bit special. So yeah. So over lockdown, I've been writing a film, and they're now shooting it, and it's amazing.
I mean, what you've just described is literally my favorite type of film and drama, because I love it when if it's about like a crime, but it's the investigation into that.
Yeah.
That's my favorite kind of stuff. Are you going to be starring in this?
No, I'm not. No. I sort of thought, we had discussions about it, and I just thought maybe just, I think I was contemplating doing like being just in the background in one of the scenes, but the thing that put me off, this is so ridiculous, is I sort of thought, if I'm in the background of this scene and I've got to be in the background the whole day, I'll be stuck there. And again, what I was saying earlier about sort of the illusion sort of starts to disappear when you're there and you see how everything gets made. And for me, it just makes the viewing experience less fun. And I really wanted to sort of watch this with fresh eyes. So I've decided that I kind of don't want to be involved in that creative process. I've done sort of my little blueprint. I give it to them. They then create their world, and then I can, watch it when it's done and sort of be fascinated by what they've sort of achieved. And I didn't want them to be coming up to me sort of asking questions about stuff as well, because it would be really easy for them to just kind of go, oh, right, what does this mean? What does that mean? What does the character feel here? What does this, how do we shoot this? How do we do that? Not that I think they would have asked me for shots and things like that, but I sort of felt that sort of makes it lack a bit of creativity, because it's just my answer to everything. And like Cormac McCarthy wrote a book called The Road, and then they made a film about it. And apparently they kept ringing Cormac McCarthy asking questions about it. And he just was just like, I'm not going to answer any of your questions, because it's now your turn to, interpret it. And by your interpretation is just going to make it fuller and, better than it could have been. If you just have this one narrow view of the story, then maybe that takes away a little bit of its soul. So I sort of wanted to stay clear of the creative side and let them sort of embellish it and make it even better than I could have imagined.
I think that's credit to your passion for your love of actually this industry and acting, because a lot of people would want, the glory in the sense of, I want to star in it, I want to be the main part, I've written this, but actually to take a step back, and the fact that you realize that this is going to be something special, you like the story, you think it's going somewhere. I think that's a massive credit to you, that you're able to step back and just enjoy it and know that, this is your thing and it's coming to life.
Yeah, exactly. I sort of feel like you can get a bit precious about stuff. As you say, or you're doing things for the wrong reasons. You're doing stuff to further yourself, your career, or further your ego. But that sometimes does a disservice to like, I don't know, to a job or something like that, where someone else could really sort of make it come alive. And I've got a lot of trust in the people that are working on the project, that they will do that. I don't need to be there, nitpicking and telling them this, that, and the other. They are more than capable, and their ideas are going to sort of really sort of that will make my writing better as well. Do you know what I mean? Like their embellishment of the project is going to make me look even better. It's great.
Well, in terms of you as an actor, obviously you're working on the writing. You've got this project coming up, but have you got any acting roles that we can look forward to seeing you on TV coming up soon? Because I know productions are getting going again now. Yeah,
they are. Sorry, I'm eating a little peanut.
What are they? Are they like M&Ms?
Yeah, they're like M&Ms. They're like peanut M&Ms. For Christmas from my mum. I don't know if they're posh. I think they're vegan. Are they vegan? Yeah, I think they're vegan.
They look posh and vegan.
Yeah, I don't know if they're posh though.
But you're going to get sent a big box of free packs of those now for their sponsorship.
Oh, right, in that case. No, my mum got me a Christmas present. It's like a vegan box, and it comes every couple of weeks or something like that. And it's just like, I think it's just a way of kind of getting vegan products sort of out to people. So each 2 weeks, each month, whatever it's going to be, are new little treats and stuff like that in it, little hampers that come every couple of months. Isn't that the sweetest thing? But yeah, there were these in there. There's actually 2 packets, a packet for me and a packet for my partner. And this is the second packet. So,
well, if Buttermilk are watching, Luke's agent's details are in the description below.
Absolutely.
A case full.
Send me as many of these as you want. They're amazing. But yeah, you should try them. They're quite nice. I've got a real sweet tooth though.
Same, yeah.
I'm always snacking on like Haribo and things like this. It's terrible. I can't remember where we were. What were we saying?
So about upcoming acting roles.
The conversation. I was actually just trying to get rid of that. Oh God, don't ask that. No, no, I've not got anything set in stone. I've had over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, I've been sort of, we have the first week of the film and all that kind of business, and I've been doing quite a few self tapes. I had a Zoom audition on, was it Friday? I think I had a Zoom audition on Friday for something. Something quite interesting. It's not something that I'd ever really thought about doing before, but it's quite a big British show, kids TV show. I probably can't say anything more about it. I probably won't even get it, but yeah, I've had quite a few sort of meetings and stuff for things. So I just, it's a case right now of just fingers crossed. Hopefully something comes through. Usually there's, it's not, you have something to look forward to, but I think because of the whole COVID stuff, I was, just not sort of I wasn't expecting anything to happen, to be honest. So it's nice just that I'm getting a few auditions coming through now. But I've been really fortunate that I've just sort of had other things on my mind and other things to occupy myself, because I know that there's been so many people that haven't sort of had that kind of fortune, haven't been able to express themselves sort of creatively over this period of time. Hey, I'll tell you what I've done as well. Here's a shameless plug. While at the very beginning of lockdown, me and a mate, we used to be in a band together. We used to be in like this blues band, just doing covers and stuff like that around Manchester. Obviously, I've moved away, and some of them have had kids, and everyone's doing their own thing. But when lockdown happened, I got in contact with one of my mates, and we were having a little chat, and we were just like, "Oh, well, should we just do some stuff? Why not?" And we ended up getting into the studio, various opportunities, and we've made a little EP, which will be I'm sure that's going to be released at some. We don't really know what we're doing with it yet, but yeah, we've made a little EP, and we're sort of just sort of putting the feelers out about that as well. But that was a lot of fun too. It's one of those things no one will probably ever hear it, but yeah. Well, I think it's good to stay creative, sort of during this time.
Well, music's a big part of your life, songwriting and music. So have you got any of your material on Spotify or things like that for people to listen to now, or is it just something you do?
No way. No, that's how come? I keep that to myself. Okay. I think it's because I sort of feel like sometimes if you put something out there, people then expect that that's what you're trying to do, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I'm not sort of protective because I'm not trying to. I've never tried, even though I enjoy singing and I enjoy playing the guitar and I enjoy writing songs and I enjoy being in bands and stuff and playing in bands. That doesn't mean that I want to be a singer, songwriter, or in a band that's touring globally or anything like that. But I think people expect that if you do that, that's you're just they just want you want to be a singer or something. I think sometimes we can't just do things for fun without people thinking that you're using it as some sort of vehicle. And so I've never ever put anything out. But this stuff's all right. I think it's difficult to sort of we're struggling at the moment because it doesn't sound like anything that we know. I guess what would you call it? Maybe prog pop. Maybe I think we've muted that title about or experimental pop. But yeah, it's all right, and he may want to do something with it. So yeah, we'll wait and see about that. We might release the EP, we might not. Who knows?
Well, Luke, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've wanted you on the show, so I'm really excited that you've agreed to come on and have a chat and obviously talk about your career so far. And I'm really excited for your new project because genuinely, that's my favourite kind of stuff. I mean, recently there's a program called Pembrokeshire Murders. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but that was very similar about a crime, but it was more the police work that went into it. I love anything to do with police and
Oh, fantastic! And again, the true crime story as well. That happened not so far from where I live.
Incredible. I'm looking forward.
Yeah,
to
in the sort of I think was it the 80s or the 90s? Was it 80s? I think that actually happened, didn't it? But yeah, like horrific. I mean, I'm not normally. I like a good procedural, and I like things like The Wire and stuff like that. Like stuff that really kind of gives you a full picture of what's going on, and the ones where there aren't necessarily goodies and baddies, where it's sort of like everyone's a goodie and everyone's a baddie, and they're just trying to make their way in the world. And sometimes good people do bad things, and sometimes bad people do good things, kind of thing. But this is sort of like I think more. think it's more of a thriller, and there's a few little elements in it that are going to throw people, I think, because I think we've been sort of subtly creative and done sort of stuff that maybe other people hadn't done. And I think what we're doing is we're creating a story that's part of the mythology of these people. We're not trying to necessarily tell the true story. Have you ever seen Chopper? Have you ever seen a film called Chopper?
No.
Do you know an actor called Eric Bana?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's one of I think it's Eric Bana's first film. He used to be a comedian, and then he got into movies and stuff. But yeah, it's a true story based on this guy called I think it's Chopper Reed or Chopper Harris. I can't remember his name. Anyway, the tagline of that story is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing like the truth. And it's sort of basically they've taken a bit of creative license in how they've told the story, and I think we've sort of managed to do that as well. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what people think of it. But I'll let you know when it's coming out and all that kind of business, and you can give your own verdict on it.
Is Chopper Reed to do with the Cray twins?
Chopper Reed. I think Chopper Reed's to do with the Cray twins, and that may be why I've got mixed up. And I think Chopper Harris is the Australian kind of he's sort of the Australian Bronson, you know, Charles Bronson. He's sort of the Australia sort of answer to Charles Bronson kind of thing.
Well, yeah, please. I mean, send it to me when it's out, and we'll put it in the description video so people can watch it if they watch this interview later on. But thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it today.
Thank you. Yeah, you take care. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you.